Welcome to Sportsnet Central. We're nuts about sports. Well, folks, today I'm very pleased to be joined by Donnovan Bennett from Sportsnet for Sportsnet Central here today. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us today, Donnovan.
My pleasure.
I mean, normally I've got my partners with me, but they certainly wish they could be here. They've got work and stuff going on, so I'm very fortunate to have the privilege to have this one-on-one with you. And where I'd like to start with you, Donnovan, is, you've been with Sportsnet since 2013 as a writer, as a broadcaster. You're jumping in for your buddies Tim and Sid here and there on the show, of course. And just talk about this journey from 2013 on to now with Sportsnet and just wherever you want to take it. How's it been going?
Yeah, so thank you for telling me it's been since 2013, because people ask me all the time, how long have you been at Sportsnet? And I have no idea. Like, the time flies, and I'm terrible with dates and times. And my time at Sportsnet kind of blends into my time previously at The Score, because I'm doing a lot of similar things with a lot of similar people. I became a part of the Sportsnet family by acquisition. I was, brought over in the merger when, Big Rogers bought the television property of The Score. Obviously, the app and the website are separate. But yeah, it's been, I guess, evolution would be the best ambiguous term I could use, because it's just been that. It's just snowballed where I've had the opportunity to do a bunch of things that I never thought I would get the opportunity to do, but even maybe more importantly, I never thought I would want to do, or I'd be very good at doing. There's a saying, we make plans and kind of God laughs. And that's certainly been the case for me, because if you asked me when I was getting into the industry, well, what is it that you want to do? I was like, I know, I want to be an anchor, highlights, personality, Canadian Stu Scott, sign me up. And then now, if you ask me if I'd wanted to do that, my answer would be no. Would I be good at doing that? No. Are there people like Ken and Ivanka and Carly and Martine and Eric that are much better at me than doing that? Yes, no question. So, it's just snowballed where I would, produce the features that I'm in and host them, and covering some U Sports, and we needed some U Sports content on our website. So I started writing, and writing became a much bigger part of my role. And I didn't just write on U Sports, or not just on football or basketball, but, everything. And that turned into writing for TV and doing some video essays. And my relationship with Tim and Sid got me doing some stuff on their radio show, which turned into doing stuff on their TV show, which turned into hosting TV myself. So it's just been like a trial by fire, sink or swim learning experience, where, because Sportsnet has so many different platforms, I've been able to lily pad from one to the other and try different things. And ultimately, though, I'm pretty platform agnostic. I don't really care where I'm telling the stories. I just want to tell stories. And that's kind of what I want to do. I want to tell stories that I'm passionate about with people that I'm really moved by and are, as passionate. And tell stories, less about the X's and O's of sports. Because although I love the inside baseball stuff, what I really love is where sports rubs up and touches and intersects with other parts of our culture, right? Race, gender, sex, socioeconomic status, politics, which is a bad word for many people, religion, and so fashion, movies. And so, that's kind of what I've been able to do, and what I endeavor to kind of continue to try and do, and carve out a little bit of a niche for myself.
Well, it almost sounds like you're speaking my language, because I love everything you just mentioned in terms of, all the issues we're facing, and but again, like you mentioned, religion and politics, two kind of taboo words, right? That we don't seem to want to mix together, just in general conversation with anybody around the dinner table. So why is that important to change that now? Maybe to bring those, those conversations into sport.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think religion for many is kind of seen as a bad word, because we see how extreme religious views and opinions often are politicized and are used to divide more than to bring together. And so when I think of religion, I was raised in a Baptist church, and like the Pentecostal church on the two sides of my family. And so when I think of religion, I think of fellowship, I think of communion, I think of community. My grandparents, who I love dearly, they moved to Toronto in the early 60s, dropped into Toronto. We're in like the little Portugal, Little Italy area of Toronto. And they went to a very specific church, Ossington Baptist Church, which they still go to this day, even though they don't live in the area anymore. And what it was for them as new Canadians was a place for them to meet people, to find other families that had similar struggles, similar interests, to find other West Indian families that they could commiserate with, share best practices with, help and extend their family. And I say all that to say, for many people, quite frankly, sports is the religion, right? Their love of athletics is the religion. It's where they're in a locker room, where they're meeting people that they never would have met before, that maybe they didn't realize, but through sport realized they have more in common with, and they are more alike than they are different. And many people, that altar that is sports, of bring people together, is really, really important for them. It's something that they kind of need in the cadence of their lives. And so if that's the pulpit that I've been given to be able to speak to some people about some issues that are really important because of their love and their yearning for sports, but also their love and their yearning for that connectivity that sports gives us, then like that's kind of an, the opportunity that I'm looking to really lean into. So I do think those two things are somewhat related, and they're not necessarily mutually exclusive, at least from my lived experience.
Well, it's powerful stuff because, I'm not here to talk about myself, but speaking for myself for just a moment, I just recently became a Christian. I discussed this with you just through email a little bit. And I'm almost afraid to talk about it sometimes because it comes with cliches, it comes with assumptions. And that's troublesome because, if you look at, Jesus, for example, we don't truly know the color of his skin. And that was intentional, I think, that we didn't find that out because that wasn't important, and I know we've heard from you also, some people will say in this whole race conversation, I don't see race. Well, that's easy for a white person to say, right?
Yeah, it's true. And so, so you said a lot there. So there's kind of multiple things that I want to address. And first, I totally hear you and understand you and see you when you say you're kind of uneasy to bring up your faith because of the views and perceptions that many people will immediately put on you without even really getting to know what your journey to coming to your faith is. And again, I think sports for me, maybe it was a way for me to reconcile that a little bit. One of my favorite athletes to watch, to kind of cheer for, and to cover, has been Stephen Curry. And he's obviously, very, very upfront and honest about his faith. It's not something that he's hiding, but he has like this amazing way to be disarming with it, right? To not have people judge him about it, to not have people put a wall about it. And he has an amazing way to make being spiritual, whatever religion that you practice, doesn't have to be the same as him or same as me, but having a relationship, with religion, he has this amazing way of making it seem cool, like making it seem fun, right? It's not like medicine every Sunday, right? It's not work. And so that's honestly, just watching him, covering him, being around him, seeing what he does. That's been like a nice reminder, but also an inspiration to me. And, I think some people could say to Steph Curry, they may say to you, or they may say to someone else watching this, oh man, I had no idea that you were religious. I had no idea you're Christian. And that could be taken two ways. It could be taken as like somewhat disrespectful, or that could be taken as like maybe the most respectful, because that's you're being viewed as a whole person and not just that side of you. But yeah, Steph Curry is a great example. I think Pinball Clemens, for me personally, is another one. And so for me in my work, and there's often an adversarial relationship, and this is the other side of kind of what you said that spoke to me. There's obviously an adversarial relationship between the media and between athletes, and sometimes between the media and between the audience now, as divisive as social media can be. And, you know, I do think part of it is maybe because of, you know, my religion. I think part of it is because I was an athlete at a like somewhat decent level. I was an athlete in university, so not clearly a pro, but was covered by reporters and know what that's like. I really, really feel it's important that from my role as a media, like to lead with like some empathy, right? To lead with some curiosity, to put myself in other people's shoes, whether it's the audience that I'm speaking to, whether it's the athletes that I cover, and quite frankly, whether it's like my employers. And so, you know, that's like an ideal that comes from a religion, that you kind of want to treat others the way that you would like to be treated. And so part of the reason why I think my coverage might sound or look a little bit different, or my interviews might be a little bit more conversational, is because I really want to always make sure that the athletes that I'm covering feel like I'm trying to treat them the way that I would want to be treated if I was in their shoes, and show a level of humanity in them to the audience that I would appreciate if I was the one being covered.
It seems like during COVID, a lot of walls are just coming down, you know, because, and we're finding ourselves we're exposing a lot of these societal issues, right? And if sport can help to do that, I mean, this has got to be such a great opportunity for growth for sport and for yourself and all your colleagues going forward. And we've already seen lots of change.
Yeah, I mean, like we have two choices, right? We can use this period to kind of be bitter, right? Like we're all being asked to sacrifice and having changes to our lives that are really none of our faults. Like nothing that any of us could have done would have been able to steer us away from the situation. I mean, now I suppose some decisions by some politicians maybe could have, but in the aggregate, the average person is dealing with situations that have nothing to do with them. So we could be really bitter about that, or we could use this time, this newfound time that we have, to figure out a way to be better, to do some introspection, some self-reflection, to do some real work that really, if we're being honest, we often don't have time and don't have the luxury to do, especially when you're in a city, you know, like I am in Toronto, where there's hustle and bustle and everyone is so busy and so focused on the day's tasks. And so I think that's maybe where a lot of these conversations are coming from. So I think it is important that however long this period lasts, as we start to, you know, restart our economy and phase back into whatever our new normal is going to be, that we don't just use this time to do our at-home workouts and, you know, become runners if we weren't runners and get a lot of kilometers in, or, you know, drink more water, whatever those New Year's resolutions that we're now doing in this pandemic. We don't just do those things about our physical health. We do that about our mental health. And that also includes thinking about and some bigger topics that we don't often think about, and having some internal conversations that we don't have, and then working through those thoughts on talks like this, when we're getting together more often for social distanced drinks, or on Zoom calls, or using the House Party app, to have some collective conversations as we're just striving for that connection that we talked about earlier. Then kind of sharing what we've kind of learned with others, so that we do have a little bit more community and fellowship, and the listening and learning that we're all doing individually, it kind of cascades out across you know, our society.
I just love that word fellowship that you keep using, because it's like, you know, that's what it's about: community, And that's a beautiful thing. And it's clear that your peers just love you. I mean, Tim and Sid, you know, doing their best, obviously, just to share their relationship with you from the very beginning that you guys have had. And I just have the sense that you have this phenomenal sense of humor, Donovan. I know we've known each other about 10 minutes, but I have this sense that, like, we need to see more of you in that way, because it's there. I could see it.
Yeah, it's funny because, like, you know, we get stuck on you know, I kind of get stuck on a lot of these really, really heavy, weighty topics, right? Like, you know, if you would have just listened to me over the last month, you'd maybe think that the world is ending. But I think it is also fun and important and vital to balance that out with, you know, the fact that, like, let's be quite honest. If we literally just sat around and counted our blessings, like, we would have a full day. You know, like, life literally is too short just to kind of walk around with a frown, even though my wife, you know, accuses me of having resting bitch face all the time. That, like, we have to laugh, we have to love, especially when we're talking about sports, because, like, sports is literally like the icing on top of the cake. It's like the distraction we are allowed to have if we're having a functioning kind of society and economy, and hopefully we kind of get back to that point. And now sports are restarting. So yeah, we've got to laugh, we've got to joke, we've got a kid, and so you know, with those guys, they kind of bring that side out of me, whether I like it or not, because they are known to get on me pretty tough, but yeah, I'm not above reproach. So the self-deprecating humor is something that you can continue to expect on Tim and Sid.
Well, that's good news for sure. So sports we've seen you cover, basketball, football, you know, would love to see you covering some hockey, man. We know you got love for the sport too. I mean, like, what haven't you done yet that you're starting to say, like, hey, I want to do this now?
Andrew, your ears are burning. Like, it's like as if you are reading the notes app on my phone, or have my phone tapped to be listening to my conversations. I'm certainly going. Okay, like, it's actually, you know, since we're being um, having a frank, honest conversation, there was points, I wouldn't say in my career specifically, but just in my adult life as a sports fan, where I was very jaded towards the sport of hockey. And I loved the sport on its own, and I loved international hockey, and it was the best, and I wanted to get up and, you know, cheer for Team Canada. But I was really jaded on the amount of oxygen it took from the room, the amount of coverage that it got, in spite of all these other sports, right? Like, we're not talking about our great tennis players and our beautiful basketball culture that we've built, and, you know, forget about talking about Canadian football. There's all of these great stories that were thrown to the wayside because we just focused on hockey all of the time. And that was like a personal thing. And when I interned at the Score, I remember this moment like it was yesterday. So we had Arlen Bruce, which was like a big wide receiver in the CFL at the time. And I was interning on a show called CFL Snap, and I played football at university. And so this was a big deal. And he was, you know, a great player. And we had him in to do a live interview on the show. And then quickly it just got like moved to the wayside, canceled. And it was like we needed to do a hit, not we as in that show, but we needed to do a hit. I can't remember. It was like because Andrew Raycroft, the goalie, like had a sprained ankle, and it was like being addressed. And I was like, really? Like, if you know, Crosby wasn't in the league at the time, but if, you know, Mark Messier, like, basically had a skate lace that was broken, like, it was going to lead the ticker at the time, and the Score was one of the first places that had a ticker for sports. So I kind of, you know, maybe even to the deficit of loving just the sport, I was a bit jaded towards it. I'm much past that now, because there are so many great stories to be told within the sport, and there's just so many great people working within it, and so many people I root for. Like, I root for Kim Davis. I hope that she is able to make the sport more inclusive. Like, I think Kyle Dubas is one of the best leaders we have in our country about anything, right? Whether it's a sports team or a news organization or a school system or politics, he's an amazing leader. And so I hope that he does well, because, you know, sports are copycat, and we'll find other leaders like him. So I say all that to say that I have dabbled in some hockey storytelling in the last little bit. Did a piece on Austin Matthews and his Hispanic heritage and why that's important to him and in his relationship with his mom. Did a Black History Month essay for Hockey Night. On Hockey Night, I did a great interview with Tony McKegney about his experience as an NHL player. So one of my mandates for both myself, but also for our company moving forward is for me to be more intentional and consistent with my hockey storytelling. I think some part of it, to be honest, was just born out of scarcity. We have so many great hockey storytellers and so many guys doing that already that, I kind of just figured I could add value telling some basketball stories or some amateur sports stories, because those aren't as told as much. Having said that, I think there are a bunch of unique stories that still need to be told. I think our female hockey players still need a greater platform and voice. And so that's something that I'm diligently going to be working towards. So the restart aside, because I don't think anyone's going to be having great access to tell stories, then next season, I vow to you, and keep me honest, that you will see much more consistent and dedicated hockey coverage from myself.
Well, I will hold you accountable. Not a problem. I'll be more than happy. And I would love to sit here and chat with you, my friend. Of course, this has been great. And hopefully we can just do this again much sooner than later. And can't thank you enough. Our Sportsnet Central podcast thanks you. And we would love to have you on again and again.
Likewise. This has been really, really fun. So appreciate you having me on.
Sportsnet Central. We're nuts about sports.